Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and Jabbar on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week, we're going to be going over UFC St. Petersburg, Russia, which is going to be going down this weekend. Early card for us East Coasters, thank God. 10 a.m. start for the prelims on Fight Pass, and then continuing again on ESPN Plus or on Fight Pass if you're in Canada at 1 a.m. for the main, or 1 p.m. for the main card. So I'm super fucking excited for that. Early card, afternoon cards, you know how much I love that. Get up, have some breakfast, some pancakes, watch some fights. Coffee and combat is what a lot of people call it. And then you got the whole rest of the evening to do whatever the fuck you want and actually be a regular human being on one of these fucking Saturday nights rather than sticking your face in front of a TV and watching the UFC fights. But before we get things going, we're going to be doing the casuals again with my boy, Big Rob. What's up?
Hello.
All right, this week we're going to be showing him something that Alexei Oleinik has been able to perfect over 57 wins. One of the more unorthodox submissions that you'll ever see. But this is actually his fight against Junior Albini. We're going to be going into this fight with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first round. All right, Alexei Oleinik is the guy on the left. He's had over 70 fights, and he looks like it.
He's going. Whoa, grabbing necks. And then down.
He kind of just pulled him on top of him.
He's grabbing his neck. It's like a lock. What's going on here? But they're both grabbing each other.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's going to put the other guy to sleep because he's choking him. Oh.
So he tapped out to that pretty much. So
I didn't see the tap out though, but
he
the
did it on the other side. As soon as they switched the camera, he tapped on his belly. But so that looks like a very unorthodox choke. You know what I mean? Like that's something you don't really see. This guy has managed to perfect it somehow, but it's like that position that he was in when he got the choke is probably one of the worst positions you could ever be in. Just because you're on bottom, the guy's on top of you, that's a dominant position. That's considered a dominant position.
Okay.
But he's able to just get this squeeze. He has a grip. We'll see it in the replay. But he has this vicious fucking squeeze where he's able to cut off both the arteries on this side of your neck, because that's what helps you breathe and helps keep the brain up there.
Especially when your heart's beating fast.
Exactly. It's interesting how he locks it up too. Like they're standing face to face.
Yeah. Right
so
there.
His right bicep is on one side of the guy's neck, and then the forearm as well is across the back of his neck on the other side.
Oh yeah, it's like both. It's almost like he's trying to put both elbows together.
And then he's using his left arm to kind of like.
But how come the guy's not trying to punch him or anything?
Because he's getting choked. He's getting choked. Even if he's
getting
punching
choked
him,
that hard, is just
the choke is going to make more damage or cause more damage than any of the punches that he's throwing from that position.
Because he's trying to conserve.
He has no room to actually get up and throw power shots. When you're that close to somebody, you're not able to generate that much power, right? Yeah. While this guy is just fucking choking, just squeezing. They call him the boa constrictor for a fucking good reason. But yeah, that was one of the crazier fucking chokes. Like, I think he's one of the only guys to do it in the UFC, and he's done it 3 or 4 times in the UFC.
It's almost like a praying mantis. Like it just grabs on and just
latches on and just fucking
doesn't let go.
Just fucking, oh my god!
It just held him down until he was
Normally you see the guy like on the other guy's back and then choking him from behind.
There's some more of a fight.
Yeah, but this guy, like, you're gonna clinch this close with me and let me grab onto this. And this guy has like everybody. He was a pretty decent sized underdog in that fight, and everybody knew the only way he could win is if he gets that type of choke. So everybody's like, the other guy's just gonna stay jabbing him on the outside.
Yeah.
Nope, let him get that close, let him get latched onto it, and pulled him down.
That's because normally when I see something like that, and in the past you showed me, it seems like the other guy's trying to fight a little harder.
Yeah,
but
this guy just gave it up.
Yeah, he was trying, but there's nothing he could do.
It was fucking like
it was game over.
I knew a lot of people that had money on the Brazilian guy that lost in that fight. They were just completely awestruck that was able to happen the way it did.
Oh man,
I felt fucking bad. All right, so that was Alexei Oleinik choking out Junior Albini. One of the crazier chokes that you'll see in the UFC, and we appreciate, as always, my man, Big Rob, giving us the casual reaction view of that. All right, so this week, like I said, we're going to be getting into. Oh my God, I even started off the PowerPoint. way ahead than I was supposed to. But it's Overeem versus Oleinik. That's completely good. But we all know what the poster looks like. We know what Alistair Overeem's face looks like. We know what Alexei Oleinik's face looks like. But we have, so this card goes down in St. Petersburg, Russia. Again, 10 a.m. start for the prelims for the East Coasters. Most of us on Fight Pass, if not on ESPN Plus. Regardless, decent card coming up. You know what I mean? There's 7 debutantes. 7 motherfuckers that are going to be making their UFC debuts here, but there's a lot of them that show a lot of good potential. Some of them are a little young, some of them are a little bit more grizzled, but I think that we're going to see a huge foray of these guys just coming in and getting some of these victories. Some of these guys are slight underdogs, heavy underdogs, slight favorites, heavy favorites. But I'm very excited to see how they can do in the UFC with the bright lights and all that, whatever comes with that UFC experience for these guys. Big fight with Alexei Oleinik and Alistair Overeem to kick off the card, to end off the card. But then, throughout it, you kind of got to really squint and see if you recognize some of these names. You know what I mean? We got Antonina Shevchenko, Valentina Shevchenko's sister. We got Sergey Pavlovich. You know what I mean? Not the biggest name. He just came off a loss to Alistair Overeem in his last fight. We got Marcin Tybura sprinkled in there. Michal Oleksiejczuk. The return of Magomed Mustafaev. Keita Nakamura, Christoph Chako. So there are some names sprinkled out throughout this card, but you're really going to want to be invested in some of these fights if you want to be paying attention, at least in my opinion. So, decent card right there. Let's just quickly go over my last card, however, which was pretty disheartening, I should say. It was a very tough loss. I'm just looking at my Bet MMA profile, and that significant decline from this last event really fucking hurts. But I'm doing my best to just fucking get back on the horse and get back to my winning ways, which I know I'm capable of, and on a consistent fashion as well. So this fucking little roller coaster I've been on for the last couple months, I haven't really lost big. You know what I mean? I've been able to muster up enough wins to make the money back, and then I hit a bad night again. So here's to fucking get my groove together and get my shit together and come in with a good game plan. But just again, let's quickly go over the last card. The only bet that won my dog of the night play, which was 2 units on Dwight Grant at plus 103, so that profited for 2.06 units. Very close fight, you know what I mean? Dwight Grant wanted a split decision. I could easily see people give that to Alan Jouban, but this is kind of a karma type of thing. You're gonna eventually get these types of split decisions to go your way, and then we get the Ben Rothwell, Blagoy, Ivanov type of decision that doesn't go your way. So maybe that's just karma balancing itself out. Another dog of the night play, Kelvin Gastelum against Israel Adesanya. 1 unit at plus 164 on Kelvin Gastelum. Very close fight. You know what I mean? Up until that 5th round, I think that's where Israel Adesanya just had a little bit more heart, a little bit more to give, and a little bit more drive than Kelvin Gastelum, who, seemed to not want it as much as Israel at the end of that fight. But big props to Israel Adesanya. I'm very happy with the output that I was able to get from Kelvin Gastelum, at that bet. Even though it was a loss, it felt like he did all the things that he needed to get the victory there, except push the gas in that 5th round. So good showing from Kelvin Gastelum, but he just falls up short against Israel Adesanya. 2 other dog of the night plays, slight sprinkles, 0.25 units for Holloway to win in the 3rd round at plus 825, and then 0.25 units at plus 1300 for Holloway to win in round 5. Poirier stuck it out in there. He really got it together. I thought that Holloway's advantage would be to kind of pull away from this fight in the later rounds, but he's never really fought a fighter that has the precision striking and doesn't gas as much as Jose Aldo does over 5 rounds, and he really stuck it to Max Holloway. He rocked him early in that 1st round, was a very bad 1st round for him, and then continued to put on the pressure, especially landing that huge knee to cause that gash just above the eyebrow of Max Holloway. So tough L there. And then also that falls right into my first lock of the night play, which was Max Holloway versus Poirier to not go to decision. So I kind of thought it was going to, the first 2.5, 3 rounds were going going to be pretty competitive, and then I thought Max Holloway was going to be able to put the foot on the gas and keep going for the rounds 4 and 5, overwhelm Dustin Poirier, which he kind of overwhelmed Dustin Poirier in that third round. I thought we were going to get a finish there. However, Poirier was able to survive, and then even with all the damage that Poirier was able to do in that first round, I thought that's what was going to happen. I mean, I thought Poirier was going to touch him up, but not as much as he did for the rest of the fight. But in that first round, I thought he was going to have a lot of success, and he had a lot of good chances of putting Holloway away there, but couldn't get the job done. So that was -5 units on that. And then my other lock of the night play was Eric Anders and Khalil Roundtree to not go to a decision. And, sometimes guys just make vast amounts of improvements and you're not able to kind of, cap for those types of things. Whereas, they've always stayed in a certain form in all of their previous fights. So it goes to show, with Khalil Roundtree, guys can really go out there and elevate their game and add a new wrinkle to it and effectively implement it in any one of their upcoming fights. So that's definitely a lesson that I've learned moving forward from this, and definitely something that people should pick up on as well, because a lot of people thought, Khalil was just going to gas after that first round, and then, Eric Anders was going to be able to take over. If, Khalil was able to get that knockout in the first round, Anders would come back and maybe finish him in the second or third by pushing the pace a little bit more. But we were not expecting to see that type of Khalil Roundtree in that fight. He beat the hell out of Eric Anders' front leg. Horrible welt there. Even if you guys could have gone to see it on Eric Anders' Instagram page afterwards, it looked vicious. And Khalil was able to keep that output up for all 3 rounds. I mean, he had plenty of chances to stop Eric Anders in that second round, just did not follow up on it. Very unfortunate, in my opinion, and that ended up making us lose that lock of the night play as well. So that one was very disheartening to take. And that was UFC Atlanta, UFC 236, -9.44 units. Really hate myself for that one. You know what I mean? But we're right back at it for UFC St. Petersburg. Like I said, very good card that we got coming up. Or very decent card for the hardcores, but also a very interesting one for a lot of these debuting UFC fighters. So let's just kick things right off. Also, I want to start off by saying that this might be a slightly more condensed episode. I don't want to go too deep into these fights because I still got to look into a little bit of them. But there are a lot of fights that I do really want to get into. But some of these fights I'm just going to glaze over a little bit. If you want to know more about them, just hit me in the comments below. By that time I should be able to get around to looking at a little bit more of it. But I'm slowly starting to get ahead of the schedule to provide the best content that I can for you guys moving on with future podcasts. But let's start things off with Magomed Mustafaev versus Rafael Fiziev. I don't know why I put that Brazilian twang on it. But Magomed Mustafaev is coming back after a heavy layoff. Last time he fought was way back in November of 2016 against Kevin Lee, where he lost by second round rear naked choke. That was a fight where he showed a lot of heavy kicks, a lot of spinning shit, throwing with nothing but heat. But Kevin Lee was able to close the distance, get the fight to the ground, which was where he was more comfortable, and he was able to beat up Mustafaev from there, and then eventually get the rear naked chokes. He almost got it in multiple scenarios, even near the end of the first round, but it was eventually near the ending of the second round where he was able to lock it up over Mustafaev. So from Mustafaev, that's somebody we have to look for that has a lot of heavy striking and can really put it on guys and make them wilt. So that's something that Rafael Fiziev is definitely going to have to worry about. But I think that he is going to show a really good game here. He's a Tiger Muay Thai product. He's currently sitting at 6-0, so he's still relatively young in his MMA career. But I saw some very, very good work from him. In his last fight against Nurzan Tutkaev, he showed vicious leg kicks. Very, very bad leg kicks. And he was... So one problem I have with a lot of leg kickers is they leg kick, but they don't stay on it consistently enough for it to have an overall damage. And we really saw it go to work in his Titan FC 51 fight against Nurzan, where he stayed on that leg kick, and then when he knew he was spamming it a little bit too much, he went to the head. So he did a very good job of methodically picking apart Tutkaev. And I'm not trying to compare the two, but I think that he could kind of almost do the same thing with Mustafaev, but he's got to be very wary about everything that's coming back at him because, again, Magomed throws with nothing but heat. I'm going to go with the upside here. I'm going to go with Fiziev. He currently sits at plus 140-ish. So I think he's worth a shot at dog money. I don't know if I'm actually going to play him myself, but I could definitely see an upset here, especially with Magomed Mustafaev coming back after such a heavy layoff. It's going to be interesting to see if Mustafaev implements a heavy wrestling game or if he thinks he can outstrike Fiziev. But I'm going to take Fiziev for the upset. I'm going to say a second round TKO, and hopefully Magomed is able to dust off some of the rust after that. Next up, we have a light heavyweight bout with Gadzhimurad. I'm going to murk this one. Gadzhimurad Antigulov versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. I know I can kill that one. I've said that one numerous times before. So with Antigulov, we're getting a guy that hasn't fought since July of last year. So relatively longer layoff considering guys normally fight every 3 months. He fought Ian Cutelaba last fight and showed his biggest flaw, and that is his gas tank. You know, I mean, he is a guy that shows very powerful wrestling, very heavy top game, and is able to submit a lot of his opponents and really impose his will from on top. But his one issue is his gas tank, and Ian Cutelaba was able to make him work a little bit harder than he's used to, especially for takedowns, and then eventually finished him, with punches and elbows. But I think that Michal, as long as he can stay out of submissions, he might be able to, if he can survive that first round, I think he can stay on his bicycle enough to be able to make Antigulov work, make Antigulov move, and then pretty much just pick him apart. I could see a late finish for Michal, and for me, it's just so hard to bet on a guy that has such a poor gas tank like Antigulov. You have to pray and hope that this guy's able to get that finished within the first 2.5, 3 minutes of the fight, because after that, the depletion of the gas tank is just something so hard to watch, especially if you have money on it. You know what I mean? Like you're praying and hoping that this guy gets to finish that quickly, but if he doesn't, it's going to be rough. You know what I mean? Outside of a one-shot kill, I don't know if Antigulov is capable of that. I think that Michal could definitely make him work. So I'm going with Michal here, and it's definitely something I'm even looking at as a potential bet. But I'm definitely seeing a little bit of money coming in on Antigulov, and we're slowly getting a better price on Oleksiejczuk. So I'm just going to wait a little bit longer throughout fight week and see where that price goes. And if it gets to a very enticing spot, I'm definitely going to take Michal here. And I think that he could get it done probably in the third round. Next up, we got I'm very interested about the lineup in terms of the order of these fights, because a lot of these guys with names are actually earlier in the card. So that's an interesting aspect to this card. But here we got Marcin Tybura versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. So we got a guy in Marcin Tybura who is coming off a victory over Stefan Struve in a fight that he showcased, let's say, his secondary strength. He's mainly a striker who's able to stay technical on the feet, move well enough to continue to jab guys, does a great job with his striking. He's not really known as a takedown guy or a wrestler, but, Stefan Struve's wrestling and takedown defense and even his submissions as of late have really dwindled. So Marcin was able to take advantage of that, keep this fight in a range that was safe for him to get a 30-27 decision. And but in other fights, he's really shown his striking prowess. In the Derek Lewis fight, he was doing very well up until that third round where he eventually got flurried on and Derek Lewis got the victory there. But in this fight against Shamil Abdurakhimov, I think he's going to have a little bit of trouble with the guy who has the better grappling here. If Shamil is able to get a hold of Marcin, I think he could definitely make this a tough fight for Marcin. And I think Shamil is going to have success with it. I don't know if Marcin is going to be able to stay away long enough. And especially at dog money, I think Shamil's an interesting bet here. I wouldn't be mad at people betting on Shamil here. He's running 2 victories right now against Andrei Arlovsky and Chase Sherman. So he's shown that he's able to, go up against these strikers and get the W. And he's also a victim of a late Derek Lewis blitz as well. Derek Lewis finished him in the 4th round way back in 2016. But I'm going to go with Shamil here. I don't think that Marcin possesses enough power on the feet to give Shamil too much trouble in terms of closing the distance. And I think that Shamil is just going to kind of just ride Marcin here to a 30-27 decision. And I wouldn't be mad at anybody playing him at plus money. Something I'm going to look into a little bit more this week, but I definitely like him here. Next up, we got Alexander Yakovlev against Alex de Silva. So I need to look into Yakovlev a little bit harder because I haven't really seen too much of him recently, and especially you're talking about a guy who doesn't fight that often. He hasn't fought since, this is longer than even, this might even be the same card that Kevin Lee last fought Magomed Mustafaev at. And again, Alexander Yakovlev hasn't fought since he lost to Zach Cummings way back in November of 2016. So he is a long guy. He's fought at 170, he's fought at 155, and now he's going to come down all the way to, he's going to be at 155. So he's definitely coming down in this fight. Maybe USADA, you know what I mean? Maybe he's just like, all right, we're going to not put on as much weight anymore or steroids and fucking come down. But I'm not going to get too deep into that. He's coming off of 2 losses. And I think he's in a little bit of trouble here, especially the fact that we can get Alex de Silva at plus money. Ooh, I would bet that sooner than later because I think a lot of people are going to jump on the Alex de Silva train. But I'm very impressed with Alex de Silva with everything that I've seen thus far. I still got to look a little bit deeper into it, but he shows great stand-up, great jiu-jitsu, a very active guard. He's a very powerful striker. He holds a lot of power in his hands and feet. And I think that he could definitely give Yakovlev some issues here. Some of those brutal elbows that he beat Slavo Midic with were fucking crazy. Just cutting elbows, got him into a really bad position and just fucking went ham on him. Eventually got the stoppage with 1 minute due to a doctor stoppage, but it was a pretty bad cut and he was doing a lot of damage there. In the Jakub Kowalkiewicz fight, that's a really close fight in my opinion. You know what I mean? That it came down to the first round. I thought the second round was De Silva, and then the third round he kind of just gave it away to Jakub. But that first round was very close, and he could easily be undefeated right now at 21-0. I'm gonna go with the upset here, and I'm gonna go by. I will go by submission. I think that he catches Yakovlev in a scramble and gets a submission here. And I love the plus money. And again, if you think you're going to bet it, I would bet it sooner than later because it's only going to get better because the word is getting out on Mr. Alex de Silva. And again, another thing playing against him, just like it was playing against Magomed Mustafaev, is the layoff. This could be a bad thing, especially coming against a guy who's been so active and such a killer recently. But I got Alex de Silva by second round submission. Next up, we got Sultan Aliev against Keita Nakamura. This is going to be a very close fight. Sultan Aliev coming off a TKO via doctor stoppage, via eye injury against Warley Alves. If you remember that brutal fucking, I don't know what it was, but like his eye just popped up. It was really, really disgusting to look at, to say the least. But he's a decent all-around guy. You know what I mean? He wants to get the fight into the clinch position. He wants to take advantage in a grappling position. And Keita Nakamura is not the biggest slouch in a grappling clinch position. But I think that Keita's path to victory here is to keep this fight on the outside, pick apart Sultan Aliev, use his crisp striking. I'm a big fan of Keita's striking here. But I think that if Sultan is able to close the distance and start clinching against Keita, I think that Sultan will have the advantage here. So I think it's too close of a fight to call, and I think the odds kind of portray that. We have Sultan Aliev at minus 120-ish to Keita Nakamura's plus 100. I don't know if I would bet this fight. It's too close for me to call. If you guys feel like you have a better read, I would definitely go with it. But in terms of me, I think I'm going to go with Sultan Aliev via decision. I think he ends up closing the distance. I think he's going to be too powerful for Nakamura to get out of these bad positions, and he's going to be able to get the finish. He's going to be able to get a decision victory over a very tough and rugged Keita Nakamura. Moving on, we got Movsar Evloev versus Seung Woo Choi. 2 debutantes going against each other, which is something that I'm not really a fan of here. I mean, like, if these guys make it to the UFC, they should already be fighting a guy with a UFC fight, because this is like a Tuesday Night Contender Series fight or a tough fight. You know what I mean? Like, don't give us this shit. Give us these guys against, even if it's a bottom of the barrel type of guy in their division. I think that, we should be putting these guys up against guys who have already experienced the bright lights of the UFC. Regardless, We're getting two debuting fighters here. One I am very high on, and one that I think deserves that minus 260-ish range that he's currently in. Movsar Evloev, pretty much grew up in the M1 Challenge fight promotion. And his last fight against Rafael Diaz was very, very impressive. You know what I mean? He won the fight in the 5th round, showing that he has a good gas tank. Very powerful in the clinch, wants to get this fight to the ground, has a very good top game, has very good submission awareness, decent on the feet, but I think he does a very good job of closing the distance and getting a hold of these guys and getting them into positions that are very compromising. And I think he'll have that success against the longer, lankier Seung Choi, who has a very good stand-up. You know what I mean? So, by all means, I think that Choi would have a chance to maybe clip Movsar here, but I think that's his only path of victory. And I think that Movsar, 10 fights in, has about 2 more fights of experience over Seung. I think he, just from what I've seen, he has the ability to close the distance without eating too many heavy shots. And even though Seung is kind of known as a striker, he does have knockout power, but I think it's nothing that Movsar is not going to be able to withstand. I think he has a good chance of closing that distance with taking minimal damage and then getting this fight to a position where it's going to be very beneficial for him. So I'm going to take Movsar by decision. I think that Wu is quite durable, even though his only loss is a very crazy finish from another Korean fighter. But I'm going to take Movsar here by decision, very grinding, very dominant decision, and kind of just laying his claim in that bantamweight division. Another very enticing prospect. All right, next up, rolling right the fuck along, we got Krzysztof Jotko against Alen Amedevski. Krzysztof Jotko is coming off a very rough stretch right now. 3 straight losses. First one was a split to David Branch. After that was a TKO loss to Uriah Hall, and then a 3rd round loss to Brad Tavares. Here he's fighting a debuting fighter in Alen Amedovski, who showed very impressive striking in his last outing, where he finished a guy in 12 seconds in Bellator. Before that, another fight in Bellator. The last fight that I saw of his was Massimiliano Sammarco. It was a fight where he was fighting a guy that was pretty obviously in a hometown advantage, but he did a very good job with relentless grappling pressure, was able to get many reversals. I don't think he showed the best submission ability, even though he threw up a lot. He was having a lot of issues trying to lock that up, but he eventually overwhelmed Massimiliano, getting a ground and poundish TKO victory, while Sammarco was turtling up. This is a fight that Jotko should easily win with his striking. It all depends on where his mental is. That's a very important aspect here with Jotko. Again, coming off of 3 losses, knowing this is probably his last chance. If he gets an L here, he's probably going to get let go. But I think that he's going to be able to put together a good enough game plan on the feet to keep Alen on the outside. Jab him up, work his striking as he normally does. And get the victory here. He holds a 2-inch height advantage, as well as I think it's going to be a pretty significant reach advantage as well, because Alen doesn't seem to be like the most lankiest guy out there. But I think that we're going to get a Krzysztof, sparring / stand-up display here, and him get the victory while keeping Alen on the outside. Next up, we got Roxanne Modafferi versus Antonia Shevchenko. I'm not going to go too deep into this fight. We all know what the hell is up with Antonia Shevchenko. Very good striking, Muay Thai champion, fucking killer on the feet. And then Roxanne Modafferi brings the veteran experience, probably the grappling advantage here if she's able to close the distance and get the fight to the ground. But I think that Antonia is just going to be too strong, and she's just going to be able to beat up Roxanne on the feet long enough, to break Roxanne and to not, going for the takedown as much, not able to close the distance as well, and then just get I'm going to say she gets a TKO victory in the 3rd round. I would be wary about playing about playing Antonina at a heavy price. She's at minus 400 now. I would be very wary of that. You know what I mean? Like, if this fight does somehow, some way end up on the ground, I think that Roxanne has a very good shot at potentially submitting Antonina here. So I don't think the minus 400 is warranted. If she ever hit around minus 250-ish, highly doubt it. I think it would be worth it at that point. But at minus 400, even as a parlay piece, something gives me pause. But I still think that Antonina wins in the 3rd round. TKO. Next up, we got Ivan Styrkov. Styrkov against Devin Clark. So with Devin Clark, a guy that trains down at Jackson's is one of John Jones's training partners. Fuck. Long day. He's coming off a spinning back fist and punches loss to Alexander Rakic back in December of 2018. Before that, he beat Mike Rodriguez. He's supposed to fight Abdurakhimov Aliev this time around, a guy that I've been waiting to come back to the UFC, but for some reason it just keeps staying out. But regardless, he gets another Russian that he gets to fight in Ivan Styrkov, a guy who's 16-0-1 that looks just... His name is the Ural Hulk. I don't know where Ural comes from. Somebody maybe in the comment section can actually educate me on that. But he's a very intimidating figure. In that fight against Geronimo Dos Santos is a very close fight which is why it was a draw. But he showed his deficiencies in his gas tank, and if this fight ever reaches past the 1.5 mark, this is something that Devin Clark might be able to take advantage of. But with Starkara, with Ivan, I'm just gonna go with Ivan. Fuck it. With Ivan, very heavy striker, but in that Thiago Silva fight, he showed some decent fucking jiu-jitsu. It was very impressive. He was transitioning from a certain position. Thiago Silva wasn't really paying attention to his arm, gave it up, and then Styrkov was able to latch onto that arm and get an armbar. Beautiful technique in my opinion too. It's not something I was expecting out of a guy like that who just looks like he just likes to throw bombs and tries to get finishes. I think that if Devin Clark is able to, one, his chin holds up, and two, he's able to set up a pace that is going to get Ivan even gassed even quicker, I think this is a fight that he could definitely win, maybe with a third round submission or even like a decision. But that first minute and a half is going to be hell for him. I think that Styrkov is probably going to catch him. I think that Styrkov is going to put him out in that first round. And I think it's going to be a short night. But there is definitely a path to victory for Devin Clark that is very viable. So I wouldn't be mad at even seeing some Devin Clark bets. What's it sitting at right now? Minus 172 Styrkov and plus 158 for Devin Clark. I wouldn't bet him at that range, but I wouldn't be surprised to see other people do it. All right, moving right the fuck along. Sergey Pavlovich versus Marcelo Gom. Sergey Pavlovich, we know what he wants to do. Gets the fights to the ground, tries to put off some ground and pound, and get the victory that way. Unfortunately, he got completely his own gamed on him by Alistair Overeem in his last fight. In this fight against Marcelo Gom, I think it's going to be very easy for him. We saw Marcelo Gom show his weaknesses in an avenue where Sergey has his most or biggest advantages. When Gom fought Arjun Buller last time around. And I think it's just going to be a similar fight. I just don't see Marcelo progressing enough, and I just don't think that he possesses enough power to knock out Sergey Pavlovich either. So it's going to be a one-sided fight. I think it's very reasonable as to why Sergey Pavlovich is a heavy favorite, sitting around minus 270-ish. And I think he's kind of even worth that price, so it might be something I look at as a potential parlay piece. But I got Sergey Pavlovich by second round TKO via GMP. All right, we're going right to the co-main event. Co-main event, Islam Makhachev versus Arman Sarukian. This is actually a potential dog of the night bet for me. I'm very much looking into this. I know Islam Makhachev is a fucking beast. He's 16-1. Only ever lost that one fight to Adriano Martinez way back in the day. But since then, he's put together 4 victories, even though he's not fought that much. It's unfortunate he hasn't fought that much, but he is a beast in that division. Very strong grappling in that Khabib team. Loves training with those AKA guys, but we all know that he just loves the grappling. He may have knocked out Gleison Tibau in less than a minute in his second last fight, but then he showed his grappling once again against Cajun Johnson, getting that armbar. But in this fight against Arman Sarukian, I think it's going to be intriguing. Sarukian, very young kid. He's only 22. We we almost share the same birthday, but he's looked like a complete killer. He only lost his second ever pro fight, and then since then he's just been whooping ass. The last fight against Felipe Oliveira, very, very impressive. You know, he imposed a very grappling heavy game, was able to control Felipe in a lot of these situations. Maybe not the best killer instinct when it comes to getting the chokes or any type of submission, but he showed a beautiful, I think it was left hook, right high kick, or right hook, left high kick finish over Felipe Oliveira, completely deaded Oliveira. Oliveira did not see that kick coming after that hook, and he paid for it. And Tsarkuyan went to 13-1 after that fight. Arman looks very strong. You know, I mean, I think he looked very much of a bully mentality in this last fight against Felipe Oliveira. Vera was able to, you know, really control him with his strength, his grappling. I think I'll have to give the technique advantage to Islam Makhachev here, but I'd be very intrigued to see how Arman's strength actually plays into this fight. I think at plus 350. He may be worth a shot, and people are, you know, watching just like the Alex de Silva fight. I think people are slowly, you know, warming up to the Arman fight, and we're going to start to see the price come down a little bit. So if you can get Arman above plus 350, I think he's worth a small shot at plus, you know, maybe 1 unit or so. But we got, I truly think that we can get Felipe Oliveira. I think that we can get Arman at a decent price, and I think that he can win a decision. But he has a very tough task in Islam Makhachev. So I'm going to say this: I'm going to take Islam Makhachev by to actually win. But I would not be surprised to see Arman win, and I think that he has a decent shot at plus 350 or even plus 300. So I'm going to say Islam Makhachev by decision, but don't be surprised if we see an upset here. Next up, let's finish this thing off strong. We got Alistair Overeem against Alexei Oleinik. We all know that Overeem was supposed to fight Alexander Volkov here. It would have been a very interesting fight. You know, I mean, I'd be very interested to see how that fight plays out. Surprised those guys have never fought in the past either, considering how many fights they all have. But here we get Alistair Overeem versus Alexei Oleinik. Very straightforward fight. We all really know what the hell to expect here. Alistair Overeem, amazing striker, heavy power, you know, always shows a great striking arsenal and isn't afraid to go up against some of these guys like Francis Ngannou, and nobody thought he would ever fucking take that fight, but he did. He paid for it, but you know, we know what to expect with Overeem. We're not expecting a Francis Ngannou type of opposition when he goes against Alexei Oleinik here, but we're always concerned about you know, Alistair Overeem's chin. I don't think we're going to see that type of power or accuracy from Oleinik to be able to put Overeem out. So I think we're kind of safe here. And I think that there is going to be some money coming in on Oleinik because people don't trust Alistair Overeem's chin. So if he hits around minus 200 or so, which I would not be surprised, I'm definitely betting that. Because I'm super tempted to bet him right now, but I just can't pull the trigger for some reason. But I think that minus 200 or so odds range will tickle my fancy enough to actually pull the trigger here. But you know, Overeem has a great submission game as well. So Alexei Oleinik may be really good at jiu-jitsu, but I think that Overeem, you know, he's a stronger, more athletic, and younger guy here. I'm certain that he's younger. Let me just fucking confirm that. 38, and Oleinik's 40 something, like 44, I want to say. 41. So he's 3 years older than Overeem, but I think that Overeem just, you know, I don't think he's going to fall into any of Oleinik's traps. He's too weathered for that. He's not Junior Albini. You know, he's not as much of a fish out of the water as Mark Hunt is when they're on the ground. So I think that Overeem, if this fight does find itself on the ground, I think he'll be safe. But I really think that he's going to be able to piece up Alexei Oleinik on the feet. I think he's going to knock him out. I think he's going to be able to knock him out first round, put him on enough to Alexei Oleinik. Maybe some knees are what some knees in the clinch are probably going to be the demise of Alexei Oleinik once he starts to try to close the distance. But I think we see another Alistair Overeem highlight finish here. Unfortunately, at the cost of Alexei Oleinik's brain. But yeah, I'm going to take Overeem by first round finish. I might bet him if he hits minus 200-ish if people really buy into that narrative of his chin. And yeah, we're just going to go with that. Bam, baby. We back. UFC St. Petersburg. That was pretty much it for the card. I will be back with next week's card. UFC Florida or UFC Sunrise, whatever the fuck they want to call it. It's headlined by Jacare Souza and Jack Hermansson, which is a great fight. I was asking for a huge fight for Jack Hermansson after he got that finish over David Branch, and voila, short notice, he gets Jacare Souza. So let's see where Jack Hermansson can take it from here. But LFL going great. We're doing week 2 next week. And as I announced before, I didn't have to actually officially announce it, but anybody who watches the podcast, you guys are going to hear it from me. I'm going to be changing the LFL format from a CPU simulated format to actual people playing against each other. I'm going to hammer out a way that I can make it fair and make sure nobody's fucking around and cheating. And we're going to put a little bit of money up. People are going to buy in. We'll see how many people we can get and how big we can grow this pot. And if it's big enough, I'll figure out a way that I can make a payout structure for like the top 3 players or some shit like that. But yeah, season 7, which should start around mid-May, is going to be real player against real player. We're going to make sure that it's fair as fuck, and we're going to have some fun. People are going to make some money. People are going to be sore losers. Some people might rage quit. Who the fuck knows? But I can't wait to organize it for everybody and make it a fun thing that people can take part of regularly. All right, that's pretty much it. I don't got much else. It was great talking to you guys again. And yeah, next week we might have a slightly longer show because I'm going to have a little bit more time to put into these fights. But keep an eye out on my Twitter feed at MMALOTN for anything that comes up this week. You know, I might change my opinion on some of these fights, or I might come up with another bet that I didn't even tease at in this episode. So make sure Twitter at MMALOTN. Otherwise, if you guys want to chat, you want to talk some shit, we can talk about it in the comment section below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and you guys continue to help me out and make me know that this is for something. I'm working towards something here. So I really appreciate the support and all you guys are always watching. Thanks as always. We out of here.